The Smoky Mountains, 1929. One quiet, chilly evening. George Pemberton, a timber baron, watches the sunrise. He is out hunting with Buchanan, his business partner, and Galloway, the hunting guide. As George aims in the direction of the rustling sound, a bobcat emerges. Buchanan had claimed there were panthers in the jungle, which had piqued George's interest, and they had come here today in anticipation of finding one. While returning, Galloway adds he hasn't seen a panther in these mountains for 9 years. George is at work with his men. Suddenly the hook of the crane comes off, leading to 2 of his men getting severely injured. The manager tells him with the recent market crash, his stocks are no longer sufficient collateral for them to renew the loan. George is not willing to keep his land in Brazil as collateral. She is not happy with what George does, but George doesn't care. At the railway station, Buchanan is baffled to see George is married, as he didn't tell anybody. Rachel is now pregnant and has come to meet George at the railway station. Serena glances at her once and understands the situation. As George tries to tell her about Rachel, Serena shushes him, saying whatever happened in the past doesn't matter to her. She wishes to see their house, so George takes her to his land, where he is building a beautiful home for them. As they reach the construction site, they see one of the workers being carried as he was bitten by a rattlesnake. Buchanan turns towards George and asks him whether he found himself a wife or a partner. Serena adds that she didn't come to Carolina to stitch. Buchanan is taken aback at her response, but George couldn't have been prouder. The next day, George gathers all his workers and tells them about Serena's expertise. He instructs them to follow her orders as they do for him, Campbell, and Buchanan. Buchanan is threatened as he sees Serena slowly taking control. On the site, Serena shows one of the workers where to cut the tree so they can save a foot that would have gone to waste. Galloway is impressed at her skills. There is a proposal to make the Smoky Mountains into a national park. A campaign is being conducted, where Kefard is enumerating the consequences of the Smoky Mountains being converted into a desert for the selfish reasons of the barons. Serena, George, Buchanan, and other workers are there too. They start demanding answers from the sheriff about losing their jobs. George also argues in favor of the workers. While leaving, Serena appreciates George for his strong arguments. Soon Serena announces her pregnancy. They have imported an eagle from India, and Serena is thrilled to train the bird. She wants everybody to know that the eagle was tamed by a woman. And that was the case. Everybody applauded as the eagle took its first flight and caught a snake. Now they didn't have to worry about being bitten by a snake anymore. Buchanan goes to meet the senator to give him some bribe money. Sheriff McDowell sees him and proposes an offer. The next day, Kefard and Sheriff McDowell come to visit Buchanan and George. They are offering $400,000 for the land. George asks for $1 million and nothing less. Kefard tells him the land was appraised at $300,000. George looks at Buchanan in disbelief and rejects their offer. George and Galloway set out on another panther hunting trip. Buchanan excuses himself, saying he has some urgent business. George and Galloway don't find any panthers, so Galloway suggests they come at nightfall. George expresses his wish to see Kefard's cabin, which is in the same woods. On its inspection, George finds the cigarette butts of the same brand that Buchanan uses and goes to confront him. He agrees he has been meeting Kefard but for negotiating the price. George is stunned to learn his partner and friend went behind his back. Buchanan finally says he wants to revoke their partnership. He also confesses if he testifies against George, he will walk free while George goes to prison. George is confounded at Buchanan's betrayal. Back home, George tells Serena about the betrayal, and that he will lose the land in Brazil, because he had to put it up as collateral for the bank to roll over the loan. Serena convinces him that Buchanan was never a friend, and she had warned George on the first night of their marriage. She asks George to fix it because she cannot see him go to prison. Soon George takes Buchanan and Campbell on a bear hunting trip. Campbell is asked to keep the horses back while George and Buchanan go alone. They see a bear, and Buchanan shoots first but misses. He turns towards George, who has his gun pointed toward him. Before Buchanan can take a shot, George fires at him, putting him to eternal sleep. Campbell sees it all, and he and George run to help Buchanan. But it is too late. Sheriff McDowell is investigating. George claims it was an accident. Campbell doesn't disclose anything, and Galloway supports George's claim. It is finally ruled out as an accident. George is distraught, but Serena consoles him, saying what he did was for them. At the station, Serena sees Rachel with her newborn. Rachel has come back asking for her old job. No one in the town is ready to give her a job. George goes to meet her and gives her the job. One day he sees Rachel with her son posing for a photograph. George feels he should be responsible for his illegitimate child. He starts giving Rachel money for her child and doesn't tell Serena about it. One day Serena visits work. Galloway loses his balance, holds the tree trunk for support, and gets struck by an axe. He loses one hand. Serena rushes to his aid and uses a belt to tie, so he doesn't lose much blood. She saves his life. Soon Serena starts feeling stomachache and bleeding. George rushes her to the hospital. She loses too much blood, and George gives her his. Unfortunately, she loses the baby and is told she will never be able to have any children. Serena is devastated by the news. The news has made Serena erratic. Galloway comes to meet Serena. He feels honor-bound to her because she saved his life. Serena rests outside her house when she sees Rachel. She sees Rachel as a threat. Both Serena and George have their reasons for lying awake at night. One day George and Serena are leaving for some time together when Campbell comes running to George. It is payday, so George gives Campbell the key to the safe and asks him to bring the key back once he is done. Campbell finds the ledgers with the account of the bribe given to the senator. He takes it to Sheriff McDowell. Sheriff convinces him to testify against George, and Campbell agrees. At the party, George is meeting some investors for his land in Brazil, but Serena gets drunk and creates a scene by asking Mr. Lowenstein to dance with her. They soon come back and are met by Galloway, who informs them that Campbell is missing, and they soon find out he took the ledgers. Serena warns George that Campbell can destroy them just like Buchanan. Galloway tells Serena that he knows where Campbell is. George has locked his office from the inside as he is preparing the envelope of money to give to Rachel. Galloway tries opening the door and finds it suspicious that George has locked the office from the inside. He then tells him that he has spotted panther paw prints. Serena walks inside the house after witnessing this. George is out in the woods looking for the panther, while Serena walks into his office and finds Rachel's picture with her baby, kept in a locked drawer along with the envelope of money. Meanwhile, Galloway goes into the town to find Campbell. Both hurt and enraged, Serena screams and scratches the baby's face in the picture. She soon composes herself and leaves the office. Campbell is sleeping in his room in a hotel. He wakes up to find Galloway in his room. He brings all the ledgers back. Serena asks Vaughn to ask the cook to make George's favorite food, while she excuses herself as she has some urgent work. She soon leaves with Galloway. Vaughn is suspicious of Serena's plan and calls the sheriff. Rachel senses something is wrong and hides with her baby when Serena and Galloway come by her house. On getting the information, the sheriff goes to Mrs. Jenkins's house to find her unconscious with a slit in her throat. It seems Serena and Galloway reached her first. Sheriff takes Rachel and the baby away. The next day, the sheriff pays a visit to George and tells him about last night's incident. George is stunned to find his wife is after Jacob, his illegitimate son. The sheriff also tells him that Galloway was after Campbell's murder. George confronts Serena, and she admits sending Galloway after his child. He pleads with her to tell him where Galloway is, but Serena doesn't tell him. George loses his cool and holds Serena in a choke, sending a clear message of what he wants. He leaves her gasping for air before going to look for Rachel and Jacob. George goes to the sheriff to ask where he took Jacob. In turn, he is ready to turn himself in, along with all the evidence. The sheriff gives George the address where Rachel is, and he rushes to save them. Galloway sees Rachel jump onto a train and chases her. George also chases Galloway. Before Galloway can do any harm to Jacob, George comes and puts an end to Galloway. In the morning, George bids goodbye to Jacob. While returning, he tries one last time to look for a panther but ends up being mauled by one. However, he takes it down with him. Upon hearing the engine, Serena expects it to be George but sees his body. She does not open the door for the sheriff and lies down on the bed.